Hey guys, my name is Simeo, and welcome to another episode of Sunday Mailbox. This is a video series where you, the viewer, can submit your gaming-related questions, and then I will give my humble opinion on them. To get the formalities out of the way real quick, if you would like to submit your own question that could be featured in an upcoming episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below, or by sending me a Facebook and Twitter message. The first question for today is, what is your opinion on having an operator in Rainbow Six Siege that fully counters pulse? Having some sort of operator that carries with him an EMP portable device similar to mute, except it's on him at all times. Example, walks through a map, is a couple feet away from a camera, and the camera jams. What do you think? I really like this idea. Not necessarily because it would be a direct counter to Pulse. I don't think that Pulse needs another nerf. I think that he's in a decent place right now. But the reason why I like this idea so much is that it could potentially finally make shield operators viable again in Rainbow Six Siege. As we all know, shields don't see as much play as they used to because every time they come out with a new DLC, Ubisoft thinks it's a good idea to give those defending operators Nitro Cell. Nitro Cell is the best way to take care of shield operators, and while a good blitz from Montanya can avoid one or two, there's only so much you can do when the entire defensive team has access to Nitro Cell. And while things have gotten a little bit better ever since the introduction of impact grenades and not as many of the defenders have C4 anymore, it's still a problem, and it's still one of the main reasons why I think we don't see as many of these guys while we're playing the game. And so if they added in a operator that could just jam all electronic devices that are around him, this could be an amazing way at countering Nitro Cell. That way, you can have your shields be confident to move up onto the objective, you're right behind them, and then not only would this require teamwork, which is another reason why I really like this idea, you're gonna have to stick with your shield operators to have this actually be a viable tactic, but it also means that C4 is nowhere near as potent as it once was. Now, the problem with this guy, and it's a pretty big issue, is that at least the way that you described him, it sounds like he might be too powerful because it would make Thatcher and Twitch not necessarily completely obsolete, but they would be nowhere near as viable as they are right now. If all you need to do is walk up to a wall, have him stand there while you plant the breaching charge, you don't need to throw an EMP grenade anymore. You don't need to risk your drone to get on side of the objective room to try to take out a mute jammer or a bandit because you got this guy just acting as that all the time around him. This would definitely be something that they would have to take into consideration. One way they could work around it is that you would need to have line of sight on the gadget for it to be disabled so it couldn't go through walls. Another way they could do it is just simply saying, okay, this jammer or this EMP device on the guy only jams certain devices. Maybe it can't take out a bandit. Maybe it can't take out a mute jammer, for example. And the only thing that it's good for is disabling Pulse's camera, his heartbeat monitor, maybe other cameras, and of course Nitro Cell. And maybe that's all that it's good for. And then we do solve that problem. All in all, though, I really like the concept of this guy. It would further promote teamwork. You would need to stick together because this guy all by himself wouldn't really do a whole lot. It would change the meta from what we have right now. We would have more shield operators being viable in Rainbow Six Siege. And so I'd like to know what you guys think about this guy. Do you think that it's a great idea? Do you think that it's blatantly overpowered? Do you think it's the worst thing ever because you like Nitro Cell and you don't want it to be obsolete? Give me your guys' thoughts down below. The next question comes from Jack, and it is, what do you think about having an objective in Battlefield 1 Conquest that is specifically meant for planes? We see that planes have little effect on the ground, and if we gave them an objective specifically meant for them, they could contribute to the match. Well, I do absolutely agree with you that I think that something should be done to give planes much more of a presence in Battlefield 1 so that they do impact the match. And one way they're going about it is that DICE has already confirmed that kills will matter now in Conquest. It's not going to be just capturing objectives. If you do get kills, if you take out vehicles, that is going to contribute to your team winning in the point departments. Now, do I think that planes need their own specific objective that they can only take by themselves? I don't know if I would go that far. My problem with that is that that puts a lot of impact on the planes. And I know that's exactly what you were going for, but I feel like that might be too much of an influence. If your team has awesome plane pilots and the enemy teams just suck, you're gonna hold on onto that capture point the entire time. You only get a set amount of planes. It's not like you can just take 10 people and bum rush an objective. Even if you're not as good, eventually you're gonna be able to take that point. That's not the case here because there's only a set amount of resources. There's only a set amount of planes that you have at your disposal. And so that one team is going to dominate that one point the entire match. and I don't really think they need that much impact on the match. That said though, I do like the idea of planes being able to take points that are down on the ground. We saw a little bit of this during the beta. If you flew around the E capture point because it was so massive, you could absolutely take that in a vehicle. You could fly around for about 30 seconds and eventually you would take it for your team. If they take that same concept and add it to maybe 1 or 2 points for conquest, I don't think every point needs to be capturable from a plane. I think that would be pushing things too far, but if they make like 3 total or 2 total on the map, that could be another good way at giving them a little bit more influence, a little bit more presence, but not being game breaking or having too much of an impact on the match. And so while I'm 100% on board with the idea of having planes just doing more in Battlefield 1, I feel like that might be pushing things a little bit too far, but of course that is just my 2 cents. The next question comes from James, and it is, what do you think about Ubisoft adding in a self-destruct button for drones for situations when it's jammed by a mute jammer? Yes, Ubisoft, listen to James. This is honestly one of the best ideas that I've heard in quite some time, because I hate the jamming system that is, at least in its current implementation. I think the reason why they have the seizure warning at the start every single time that you load the game is because of the jamming effect. It's the only thing in the game that is as obnoxious as it is and could even induce a seizure. I feel like I'm gonna start to get a headache every single time that it happens. And while I understand why they have it the way that they do, because it gives you a visual representation when you're getting close to a jammer so that you can either avoid it, and then if you're unlucky enough to get jammed completely, you can't see what's going on behind. Like, that's what mute is all about. But I feel like they could at least give us some options. I would much rather prefer a system where if I do get jammed, it just turns into a black screen with a message that pops up that the drone is offline or something like that. And while I know that not everyone would take advantage of a self-destruct button, because you could potentially save your drone. If somehow it survives the entire preparation phase and you're able to throw an EMP grenade on the jammer or just take it out with a bullet, you could save that drone. I think a lot of people, me included, would much rather not stare at that screen for 20 to 30 seconds, causing a headache. This is my opinion, maybe I'm in the minority here, but I think that this would be amazing, and hopefully Ubisoft does something to at least give us some options in the future. The next question comes from Ivan, and it is, don't you find it a little strange that there isn't a trench warfare-based map in the base game in Battlefield 1? You would think that since it's a World War I shooter, there would at least be one trench warfare-based map. Has it been confirmed that there aren't going to be any trenches? Like, I don't think that there's going to be a map entirely designed about people being in trenches, but I do believe that there are going to be at least some trenches in the multiplayer. We already saw a couple examples of it in St. Quentin Scar. When I was playing and running around in the alpha on the outskirts of the map, there were trenches. They didn't really have any impact on the match, and it kind of felt like it was an extension of a different game mode. Maybe in a rush, the trenches are going to have more of a play. But I do believe there is going to be at least some trench warfare, but it may not be completely centered around the map itself. DICE has already come out and said on numerous occasions that they are not creating a realistic World War I shooter. It's a video game, and they know that it's a video game. They're going to try to make it as authentic as they possibly can, but at the end of the day, they want to make sure that it's fun. And I'm imagining that might be one of the reasons why we don't get a map that's entirely designed around trench warfare. How do you design conquest when everyone's in trenches? Do you run out in the open? Like, how in the world would that work? And while I think that if they did it properly, I can only imagine if the best minds came together to create the best conquest trench warfare map ever created, they could do it, but it is quite challenging, and it may not be the gameplay that a lot of people are expecting when they play a Battlefield title. And so while I know the trenches are going to be in the game because I've seen them with my own eyes, I would guess that's the reason why we don't get a map that is entirely designed around that combat. But yeah, guys, that is about it for today's Sunday Mailbox. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you thought about what we discussed in today's video. Do you love the idea of having an operator in Rainbow Six Siege that constantly jams everything around him? Do you think it's the worst idea ever? Let me know down below. As always, if you would like to submit your own question for an upcoming episode, you can also let me know down below in the comments or by sending me a Facebook and Twitter message. But until tomorrow, guys, have a good one and take it easy.